Have you ever tried to implement an Angular library like Angular Material, NGX Bootstrap, but with Tailwind CSS yourself? And I'm talking about component libraries, design system, etc., which do not require the applications to install Tailwind CSS, but it works more like a drag and drop in which your library has Tailwind CSS packaged into it, and all they need to do is to install your library without even having to use Tailwind CSS, and they get all the styles automatically. Well, you're lucky because that's exactly what we are building today, and this is going to be a beginners friendly tutorial, even though this particular use case is more of an advanced use case where a senior developer might be doing these things, but you will be aware of everything that is going on with a simplistic approach which can be obviously modified and made better later on. Well, the common challenge that Angular developers face when building a library that has to package Tailwind CSS is that ng-packagr, which is the official build tool for Angular libraries, does not really compile Tailwind CSS, which often leads to hacky workarounds, or worse, places the burden of installing Tailwind CSS, etc. on the developers who are going to use your library. Well, in this video, we are going to create a two-phase build process which will package our Angular library with pre-compiled Tailwind CSS styles. And not only that, we are also going to build a consumer application that will use those styles, and we are going to test it locally using something called npm link. So watch the video till the end, and if you find it useful, of course, make sure to give it a like. Hey everyone, my name is Mohammad Hasanayaz. I'm a Google acknowledged expert in Angular. I'm the author of 3 Angular worldwide published books, namely the Angular Cookbook, the Angular Cookbook 2nd edition, and also my latest book, which is Mastering Angular Signals, that talks about signals, which is one of the most features of today that will shape the future of Angular, because you know what? Signal forms are coming anytime soon. And if you're familiar with the signal APIs, it's going to be much easier for you to understand how forms work, how resources work, and even how the defer block and hydration work as well. Well, to some extent, so to say. With that said, let's actually get started. This particular video doesn't require you to have a project already made because we are going to build everything from scratch. So first of all, make sure you have the latest version of Angular CLI installed. So you will do npm install -g at angular/CLI at latest. This makes sure that you have the latest package installed, and in our case, that's going to be version 20. So if I do ng-version, I will be able to see the version right here. Now, the first thing that we are going to do is that we are going to stick to Angular CLI, even though the same approach can be applied to NX or other monorepository tools, but we are going to keep it official, so to say. So here we are going to say ng-new, and here we can say awesome design library or awesome design system, so to say. But while we are creating this workspace, we are not going to create an application. We just want the workspace because we are going to create the library first and then the application. So here you can give an argument that says no-create that application, which sounds a bit weird because we never say no create application. We always say don't create an application. Whatever, let's go. So we create an application and we are going to use zoneless here. So we can just say why. If you want to choose no for this, feel free to do so. Here you can see that we are creating now the folder itself with just the readme and the bare bones. We don't really have a particular application there yet. Now that you have the project created, you can open that into your favorite editor. I'm going to use VS Code for this one. So let's quickly open that. All right, now that you can see that we have the node modules right here, you can go ahead and open terminal. So you can click view and you can go to terminal or just press this shortcut here. And then what we are going to do is we are going to create a library. So we can say ng generate and then library. And then we are going to name it awesome design library. So we can say awesome design library. And as an additional argument, we are going to give this a prefix as well. So every component, directive, etc. gets also this prefix. For example, if you are creating a button, it's going to be called ADL button, which is awesome design library button. You can name it whatever you want. Once you run this command, you're going to see that it's going to create inside the projects folder this awesome design library with the readme, package.json, and this public api.ts file. This is essentially the entry point of your library. So if you open it, you're going to see that we have source and then we have this public api.ts, and this one exports from this awesome design library, which is essentially the name of a component. So we not only have a library which is called awesome design library, we also have a component which is called awesome design library. Now we're quickly going to change that because we don't really want to call it this and we want something different. So we are going to create a component. We can say ng generate component, and here we can go ahead and say that it's going to be called Tailwind card, or we can say tw-card, and you can name it whatever. So now I'm gonna just run it with dry run to see where this ends up. And here you can see that it goes directly inside projects, awesome design library, source, lib, and then there's going to be a folder called Tailwind card where everything is going to be created. So here I can quickly go ahead and run this without the dry run flag. So we have the component created, and now you can see that we have this Tailwind card component right here. I can go to the HTML now and I can paste a random Tailwind CSS code. You can pick anything from the internet or use Gemini CLI to essentially create some Tailwind code. I'm just gonna paste it right away. Here we have P6, Max WSM. All of these classes are essentially Tailwind CSS classes. So feel free to just grab a random component and just paste it here. Once you do so, it's really important to export this component just like we have this component exported, which is awesome design library. So I'm gonna first delete this component so it doesn't really exist. Then I'm gonna go to public API, which is now crying because we just removed the only component that was exported. So we're gonna replace this with Tailwind card, and then we can say Tailwind card, and now this component that we created is exported now. Great. Now I want to build the library to see if everything works. So I can quickly say ng build here, and then I can say awesome design library, and then if it works, then that means everything is good. So here you can see that everything works. We got this dist folder inside which we have this awesome design library, and then we have the FSM packages and whatnot. So everything is good. And now comes the interesting part, installing Tailwind CSS. So we're gonna go to our browser to Tailwind CSS. We can go to docs here, and then we can go to frameworks, which is right here, and then Angular, and then we can see the process here. So we already created a project. We just need to install these packages. So I'm gonna copy this, go to my terminal, clear this, and quickly paste this now. So this is going to install the Tailwind CSS packages for us, but we don't have an application yet, and we need to use this package into our library. So let's do the rest of the steps. So here we need a PostCSS.rc.json. Let's quickly create that. So I'm gonna go here and I'm going to create a file at the root of my project. I can quickly go ahead and copy this, go back to my code and paste it like this. And finally, I need to import this into a CSS file. Well, the thing is, we don't really have the CSS file. If I go to projects and source, you can see that we have the lib folder here, which contains the components, but we don't really have a styles file per se. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead inside the source and I'm going to create a file called styles.css. And in here, I'm just going to import Tailwind CSS, and that's pretty much it. Now let's revise the two-phase build process. The first phase is building the Angular library. The second phase is compiling Tailwind CSS. So what we want to do in this case is we're going to go to our package.json and we are going to create some scripts right here. So first we are going to go here and we are going to say here we have build, lib, and then ng. This is the first phase where we want to use the ng-packagr. So we are just going to say ng build awesome design library, which will essentially run ng build. Now we are going to also run build lib, and here we are going to say Tailwind. And then we want to use the Tailwind CLI to basically compile Tailwind CSS file. And here we can say npx @Tailwind CSS/CLI. And here we can give it the input and the output. So I can say -i, which is the input. And then I can go ahead and give my project. So it should be projects/awesome design library/source. And after the source, we don't really want to go to Tailwind card. We actually go to the styles.css. So here inside source, we have styles.css just like this. And you can see it and confirm here. So if I go to this folder, we have source. And then inside the source, we have styles CSS, right? And when we talk about the output, it's going to be dist and inside the name of the library. So the folder should be this. And then we go ahead and we just say here, it should be styles.css and we say minify. So now we have two phases here. One, building the Angular library. Second, building Tailwind. And now we can create a command which combines both of these. So we can say build lib, and this essentially runs both of these commands. So instead of running npm run build or ng build library, we're going to go ahead and say npm run build :lib. When we do so, you're going to see that it runs the first process. It basically gets the Angular library created, and then it goes ahead with the Tailwind CSS compilation. You can see here, and then this is done. If I go to the dist folder now, you're going to see that here we have the styles CSS. So here you can see that we have a bare bone of Tailwind classes that you can see right here, and that's good stuff. Now, if I try to format this file, you're going to see that we have a bunch of styles right here. If I scroll all the way down, you're going to see that we have 434 lines of code. So what I'm I'm going to do is I'm going to actually remove everything from dist folder to show you something interesting. I'm going to go to my projects and I'm going to go to library, and then in the HTML, I'm just going to comment out everything or basically remove everything. So let's remove this, save now, and now I'm going to run the same process. You can see that we still have success here. If I go to dist, if I go to style CSS, you can see that if I format this file, we don't have 400 lines of code. We essentially have just 260 lines of code, and that is because we removed the component or the HTML of our component, which means that the styles for that particular component, which was right here, are not included anymore. So this assures that whatever you code within your Angular library is going to be picked up by Tailwind CSS, and it's going to be part of the bundle at the end in the dist folder in the styles CSS file. So this just proves it, or it's a good way of checking it out. Now I've put the HTML back so we can move forward from here, and we're not really done with the library setting things up for styles CSS, and I'm going to tell you why. Because we need to be able to import from the package later on. For that, the package.json of the library has to expose it. By that, I mean you're going to actually go to the project and the library itself, and you're going to go to the package.json of the project itself. I'm going to close the other files now. Now, in this particular file, I need to tell the package.json and ultimately npm or node.js that we are also exposing the style CSS file. So I can quickly go ahead here and say exports, and in the exports, I'm going to say that now we have something called styles.css, and we can quickly give this the path like this. And here I can simply say style, and here I can say styles.css. Now make sure that both of these say style CSS and style CSS, so we can easily import later on in our package by just saying, hey, pick the style CSS from my awesome design library, and that's pretty much it. So I'm going to actually save this now, and now we are going to go ahead and we are going to build this. So we can say npm run build lib. So we have the correct styles built with the component HTML and CSS as well. And now if I look at the dist here, you can see that we have the styles CSS file right here, which is again about 430 lines of code. And then if I go and check the package.json, I can also see the exports as well. Here you can see other exports as well. For example, package.json, types. Now we also have this style CSS here as well. Well, this is super cool so far, but how do we test it? And we need an application to test it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close all the files. I'm going to clear this, and now we are going to create an application. So here I can say ng-generate application, and I'm going to call this consumer app, and I'm giving the style to be CSS. So I'm going to quickly create this. We are going to say yes to SSG and pre-rendering. It doesn't really matter. You can say no if you want, and I'm going to go zoneless as well because we have been talking about that for years. Now that we look at the projects folder, you can see we have awesome design library as well as the consumer app. Now the key for testing this without actually publishing my library to npm registry is basically to use something called npm link, which allows us to locally test this package from the library's dist folder to the application. And we do that in 2 steps as well. In here, first, now that we have built the library, I need to go in the dist folder and I need to use npm link here. So this package gets installed globally in my machine. We do this by going to the dist folder, and then I can go ahead and say cd awesome design library. So now I am inside this folder. Since this is the folder which has the package.json, this is exactly where I need to run this command. So I can go here and say npm link, and this will install this particular package globally in my machine. Now, if I want to install this package into the app itself, then it's really easy for me to just use the package name to do so. How do we do that? If you see the package.json, this is exactly where all of the packages of my Angular workspace are residing, which means that any packages that I need to use within my library or within my application should be installed at this level, which means that they're going to go inside this node modules folder, right? So I hope you understand where I'm going with this. When you build a library, it goes inside the dist folder, but actually this design library's source code and the application's source code, which is inside this workspace, has to use this package.json and this node modules folder. So what we are doing right now here is that we got this dist folder, we simulated that there's a package globally installed in my machine, and that package is now going to link here in the package.json. That's what we are going to do. So what I need to do, since I'm in the dist folder right now, or dist awesome design library, I need to do cd ... and then /... Now I'm at the awesome design system level, which is this whole workspace. And now I can go here and say npm link, and I can say awesome-design-library. Once I do so, you're going to see that this is going to link this package. So it added the package. What does that really mean? If I go to node modules, I can actually see my package, which should be right here. You can see that this particular awesome design library is a symbolic link, as you can see right here highlighted. So this is a symbolic link, and this points exactly to this dist folder's awesome design library folder, which means that I'm going to be able to see exactly the same file. So if I open this, I can see the style CSS, I can see the package.json, everything here. But now we have locally, without publishing to npm registry, installed our libraries built into our workspace, and now our application can actually use it. So now that we have the package installed here, we can go ahead and first serve our application. So here I can say ng-serve, which will basically serve the consumer app by default, or you can say ng-serve consumer-app to be more specific. And now if I go to my browser, you can see that this is the application that was generated. But now I actually want to use my components inside. So there are two things that I need to do. First, I need to import my component from my library. So if I look at the name of the component, what was it? It was twcard, right? And this is exposed via the public API. So all I need to do is, since I have this package installed, I can go to my source app and then app ts, and I need to first import that component. So here I can go ahead and say twcard, and first time when you try to import this, it's not gonna understand what you're talking about. So you first need to import from the path. So here I can say this from, and here I can say awesome design library, and here now I can say twcard, and you can see it finds it easily. Now I can also replace this twcard, and now I need to use that in my template. So I'm gonna empty my template for now, so I can quickly go ahead and say this, and now I can go ahead and just add a heading. I can say awesome design library, and here I can say demo. Now I can go ahead and import the component. So here I'm going to use my prefix, which was awesome design library, which is ADL, and here you can see Tailwind card. How do we really know that? If you go to the design library, go to the component, you can see this is the selector. So ADL Tailwind card, and here I'm using the same. So I'm going to save these files now, saving this, and now if I go to my browser, this is what it looks like. Well, not really what I hoped for, because this doesn't look styled at all. And if you right click this, inspect it, you're going to see that the Tailwind classes are here. For example, P6, we have shrink 0, we have flex here as well. So this is not really applying any styles, and you can see on the right side here as well, we don't have any styles being applied. So the question is, what did we miss? Well, what we missed or did not do yet is using the CSS or including the CSS. So what I need to do is I need to just go to my styles CSS file inside my app. So my consumer app is going inside style CSS, and here I just need to import the CSS file from my library. So here I can say @import, and here I can say awesome design library / style CSS. This is it. If I save this now, go back to my browser, boom, you see all the styles are actually applied, and our application itself does not include Tailwind CSS. These styles are actually bundled and are pre-compiled. So my application does not need to install Tailwind CSS at all. In fact, you can take this awesome design library and use in any Angular project which does not use Tailwind CSS. You will still have these styles being applied because these are part of the library. The applications don't have to install anything at all. Now you can see that if I inspect the styles here, for example, for this particular element, you can see that the text black, this comes, we have the variables as well, and all of that is coming from the styles CSS file, which comes from the awesome design library. So every style that you see right here is part of the library, not part of this project or within the consumer application, so to say. And that is exactly what we wanted. That's what this video is about. But wait, if we just stop here, then we have a problem. Imagine that you have this workspace where you have your component library and you have a demo application that you are using for basically testing out your library. And every time you make a change to your component library, you need to build your library, npm link it, and then you need to test it in your consumer application. That doesn't really sound good to me at all. Now, you have certain ways of going about this. First, you can use the source code directly into your application. Second, you can still use npm link, and you can say, okay, whenever something changes, I'm going to build my library, and then I'm going to also compile Tailwind CSS, and I'm going to keep a watch on these two things, which means that whenever you change your source code into your library, not only your library gets recompiled and rebuilt, but Tailwind CSS also gets recompiled and built. And I know some of your developers will not like it. You're gonna be like, nah, creating a whole build is not really my cup of tea, or I would just use the source code directly. Well, people have different preferences. Some people really like to see how it looks in the real world or in the production environment. Because you're using npm link, you're actually simulating what's closer to your target customers if your design component library is used by other teams, for example. So using the source code is not much of a big deal, but you would have to cross-reference the library from the application itself. I'm going to show you how to keep using npm link, but watch watch both the changes in the component library and Tailwind CSS. And for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my package.json right here. And inside here, where we have our scripts, we are going to essentially copy paste some of the scripts here. So I'm going to copy these scripts and now paste them here. And now we are going to change those. So the build lib ng essentially becomes watch lib ng. Similarly, build lib tailwind becomes watch lib tailwind, and then we have build lib, this becomes watch lib. Now, when we are essentially building the library, all we need to do is to use the -- watch here. Similarly, for the tailwind one, we need to do a couple of things. We need to remove minify and we need to say watch. Why are we doing this? Because in the dev environment, when you're actually developing, you may need to watch it and you don't really want minified CSS there. You just need the normal CSS. So here, I'm just going to keep it watch. And then finally, we need to run watch lib ng, and here we need to run watch lib tailwind. Now what I can do is I can quickly go ahead and stop this server. So we need to run two different things now. I'm going to say npm run, and then I'm going to first say watch lib, which is going to start the build process, but keep watch on both of these things, the Tailwind CSS and also the library itself. And in a new terminal, I'm going to go and say ng serve consumer app. And now you can see that we have this running. I'm going to actually go to my app.ts and remove this because I don't like seeing this warning on and on again. So I'm going to save this now. And now what I want to do is I want to go to my library. Remember that my library's source code is not linked in the consumer app. My library's source code is first built, and then the build is essentially linked in the consumer app, so to say. So whenever I make a change in my source code or in my library's code, it has to build it again, and then the npm link basically joins them together or makes the connection, so to say. So now I'm going to go to my source here and I'm going to go to my Tailwind card here. And then what I'll do is I'm going to change this bg white to bg red and then maybe 200. So I'm going to save this now. And if we go to the browser, we can see that, okay, this doesn't really work. So we missed something and I can see what's wrong. What's wrong is that we try to run a command that opens up two different watch processes. One is this one. So it has built the library, but it's watching for changes. And since it's watching for changes, it doesn't even go to the next part, which is basically compiling Tailwind CSS. So it doesn't really do that. So what we need to do here is that we need to run something that runs these two in parallel. So what we can do is we're going to use something called concurrently. So here we can say npx concurrently, and then we need to basically combine these two things. And when you do, you need to escape these quotation marks because you need to put the commands inside these quotes. So it should look something like this. We have npx concurrently, then we have npm run watch lib ng, and then we also have npm run watch lib tailwind. Now we're going to save this now, and we are going to go ahead and we can run npm run watch lib. Now you can see that this uses concurrently. You may have to install it the first time. And now you can see that both of the processes are running at the same time. My application is still running at the moment, as you can see, but I'm going to stop it and I'm going to serve this again. And you can see that the build is successful. If I go to my browser, you can see automatically we have the changes. Now that this is running, I'm going to revert the change. So I'm going to change the background to white. If I go to my code, if I go to the Tailwind card HTML and revert my change to bg white, save this, quickly go to the browser, you can see that the background is changed again, and I did not have to build anything because I'm running a command that essentially is building something behind the scenes. So this is sort of a development environment which is closer to how it would look on production, where you have your Tailwind CSS styles being compiled. But of course, when you go ahead with a larger component library, this particular method would not be as suitable because then you're going to recompile the whole Tailwind CSS and the whole Angular library, which is not really fruitful. But I'm just showing you a way that is possible and might be feasible for you in certain situations. Well, that brings us to the end of this video. You now know how to use the Angular CLI to create an empty workspace without an application or library, then how to create an Angular library, how to install Tailwind CSS in the library, how to pre-compile the styles packaged with the library itself and exposing it using package.json, and how to use npm link to use the dist folder, linking it to your project so you can test your library out without even publishing to npm.js registry. And not only that, you also saw how we can use the watch mode while we are developing the library to keep rebuilding the library and recompiling the Tailwind CSS styles while we are developing using the watch mode. With that said, I have to say that I'm really excited for Angular and the direction that it's going towards. For example, we've got signals, resources, we got the defer block, hydration. I've created videos about all of those things, so to say. And I'm really excited for the signal forms which are coming in the future. And if you really want to take your Angular signals knowledge to the next level, I highly recommend this book, which is Mastering Angular Signals, which of course I wrote. And it is packed with signals, signal APIs, how to test your signals, and real practical examples that you can read, learn, implement, and take your Angular skills to the next level. Having said that, if you liked the video, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. If there's something in particular that you want me to talk about related to Angular, make sure to type this in the comments. There are some sponsored videos which are coming to this channel, which are going to be long form tutorials, but I'm going to keep you posted about that using the community or using my socials. Having said that, thank you for watching. As always, happy coding. I'm going to see you next time.